The city was still asleep when the gunshot cracked through the silence. Detective Jack Morgan knew the sound before he heard the sirens, sharp, final, and merciless. By dawn, a young woman lay dead in the heart of Brooklyn, a single bullet in her chest and a note clenched in her hand. The note wasn't signed, but it didn't need to be. Everyone in New York whispered the same name, the Whisperer, a ghost-like killer who never left fingerprints, never showed his face, and always struck where no one expected. Jack had spent 10 years chasing shadows. Now the shadows had come knocking on his door, and this time the victim wasn't just another case file. She was someone he once loved. The call came in at 4:12 a.m. just as Detective Jack Morgan was pouring his third cup of black coffee. Nights like this never ended. They only bled into mornings. The precinct's hum was low, almost sleepy, until the dispatcher's voice cut through the static. "Detective Morgan, we got a 10-54 at Prospect Park. Female mid-20s, possible homicide. You're up." Jack grabbed his coat without a word. The September air outside was cold enough to sting, but it was the kind of chill he welcomed. Brooklyn streets were quiet at this hour, street lamps burning lonely yellow pools onto the pavement. As his unmarked sedan rolled through the near-empty avenues, the detective's mind wandered back to the sound he could never forget. That sharp, metallic crack of a bullet, a sound that never left you, even in your sleep. When he arrived at the park, crime scene tape was already stretched tight, a few uniforms milling about like ants circling sugar. The body lay beneath a streetlight, face turned toward the sky, eyes wide open. Jack stopped in his tracks the second he saw her. Her name was Claire Monroe. The years hadn't erased her from his memory. The girl with auburn hair and a smile that once kept him sane back when he was just a beat cop. She had been the one who slipped through his fingers when the job consumed too much of him, and now here she was, lying cold on the pavement with a single gunshot wound to the chest. A folded piece of paper was clutched in her hand, stiff from rigor mortis. Jack pulled on gloves, knelt, and carefully slipped the note free. Black ink scrawled across the page, neat, deliberate. "The game begins. You've already lost." Jack's jaw tightened. He'd seen that kind of writing before, 3 years back, when the newspapers had screamed about a faceless killer haunting the boroughs. A predator the media had christened the Whisperer. Victims chosen at random, murders executed with precision, no evidence left behind. Then, suddenly, the killings had stopped. But now, with Claire Monroe lying dead before him, the Whisperer had returned. Sergeant Alvarez, a stocky officer with tired eyes, approached. "You know her." Jack didn't answer right away. His throat felt tight. Finally, he forced out the words, "She was someone I used to know." Alvarez frowned. "Well, looks like your ghost is back. No prints, no casings, nothing but the note, same as before." Jack folded the paper carefully, his mind racing. This wasn't random. Out of 8 million people in New York, the Whisperer hadn't picked Claire by chance. This was personal. The press was already gathering outside the barricade, camera flashes piercing the darkness like lightning. Jack turned away from them. He didn't want the world to see his face, not when grief and rage were battling in his eyes. He stared down at Claire one last time before the coroner zipped the body bag. "This isn't just murder," he muttered. "It's a message." And Jack Morgan intended to answer it. Detective Jack Morgan hated the press. By sunrise, every news outlet in New York had splashed the murder across their websites. The Whisperer returns. Young woman executed in Prospect Park. Reporters shouted questions outside the precinct, their cameras like vultures circling a corpse. Jack pushed past them, jaw set, refusing to answer. The media didn't care about Claire, they only cared about headlines. Inside, the squad room buzzed with fresh energy. Cops who had never worked the Whisperer case swapped theories like kids trading baseball cards. Jack dropped into his chair, tossed the crime scene photos onto his desk, and stared hard at the one image he couldn't shake. Claire's lifeless eyes fixed on the night sky. Detective Riley Chen, Jack's partner, slid into the seat across from him. She was sharp, methodical, the kind of cop who believed in facts over feelings, but even she looked uneasy. Jack, I pulled the files from the old Whisperer case. Same pattern, one bullet, no struggle, note in the hand, but the victim this time. She paused, choosing her words carefully. It's not coincidence, is it? Jack shook his head. No, he wanted me to see her. He wanted me involved. Riley tapped the edge of the file. Then we've got a problem, because if the Whisperer's back, this city's about to bleed again. At 9:30 a.m., Jack and Riley sat in the coroner's office. The medical examiner, Dr. Singh, adjusted his glasses as he flipped through notes. Cause of death, gunshot wound, close range, no defensive injuries, no drugs or alcohol in her system, clean kill. Anything unusual? Jack asked. Singh hesitated. Yes, there's something etched into the bullet. He slid an evidence bag across the table. Inside was the deformed slug pulled from Claire's chest. Under the harsh light, faint scratches ran along the metal surface. Singh held up an enlarged photo. It wasn't random, it was carved deliberately. A single word, remember. Riley leaned closer. That's new. The Whisperer never mocked his bullets before. Jack's pulse quickened. He's escalating back at his apartment that night. Jack poured whiskey into a chipped glass and spread the old case files across his kitchen table. 8 victims, spread over 3 years, each killed with surgical precision. No fingerprints, no surveillance footage, no witnesses. But now Claire... Monroe, his Claire, was dead, and the word remember burned in his mind. He pulled out a box he hadn't touched in years. Inside were photographs from his younger days, back when he and Claire had been inseparable. Summer picnics in Queens, long walks along the East River, her laughter echoing in his ears. Beneath the photos was a letter she had written to him after their breakup. He unfolded it with trembling hands. Jack, you're married to the badge. I can't compete with the darkness you carry home every night. But I'll always hope you find peace. Now she was dead, killed by a ghost Jack had never caught, and peace felt like a cruel joke. At 11:47 p.m., Jack's phone rang. He didn't recognize the number, but he answered anyway. A distorted voice seeped through the line. Calm, cold, familiar. Detective Morgan. Jack froze. The Whisperer. You've been chasing me for a long time. The voice continued, but you never understood. It was never about them. It's about you. Jack gripped the phone so hard his knuckles went white. You son of a bitch. Why, Claire? The Whisperer chuckled softly, almost like a sigh. Because you needed to remember, and because the game has rules. You'll learn soon enough. The line went dead. Jack sat there, heart pounding, whiskey glass trembling in his other hand. The Whisperer had his number, and worse, he had his attention. Jack Morgan didn't sleep after the call. He sat in the dark, files spread around him like gravestones, his service weapon on the table, waiting. The Whisperer wasn't bluffing. Every instinct in Jack's body told him that something else was coming, and soon. By dawn, Riley Chen was pounding at his door. You look like hell, she said as she stepped inside. I traced that call. Burner phone. Last ping was from a payphone in Red Hook. Cameras in the area caught nothing. Guy knows how to ghost us. Jack rubbed his temples. He's playing me. Claire wasn't random. This is personal. Riley eyed him. Then what's the connection, Jack? Why, you... Jack didn't answer. He wasn't ready to say it out loud. The suspicion gnawing at him since the word remember had been carved into that bullet. 2 nights later, another body dropped. This time it was a cab driver, shot in the same clean, clinical way, note in hand, move faster, detective. Or more will die, but there was something else. A map scribbled on the back of the note, a crude drawing of a warehouse on the Brooklyn waterfront. It's a setup, Riley said, studying the map under the fluorescent lights of the precinct. Of course it's a setup, Jack replied, but it's also the only lead we've got. Captain Doyle wanted surveillance, SWAT, the whole circus. Jack refused. He wants me there. Alone, Riley slammed her hand on the desk. Then it's suicide. Jack's eyes hardened. Then it's what it takes. The The warehouse loomed like a carcass on the docks, rusted steel ribs groaning in the wind. Jack entered with only his flashlight and his Glock, every step echoing against the hollow walls. The beam of light swept across crates and broken machinery, then froze. A chair sat in the center of the room. A man was tied to it, gagged, his chest heaving in panic, a hostage. From the shadows a voice drifted, "Welcome, detective." Jack turned, gun raised. A figure stepped forward, face hidden by a hood, but posture calm, deliberate. The whisperer. Jack breathed. The hood tilted slightly, almost like a bow. "You've hunted me for years, but you never asked why." Jack's finger tightened on the trigger. "Why Claire? Why any of them?" The whisperer chuckled. "Because I'm your mirror. Every choice you made, every life you couldn't save led here. I kill to remind you of what you are, failure wrapped in a badge." Jack's throat tightened. The words cut deeper than the cold air. He forced them back with anger. "Not this time." The whisperer stepped closer, hands visible, unarmed. "If you shoot me, the hostage dies. If you don't, he still dies. You can't win, Jack." That's the beauty of the game. The hostage's muffled cries filled the warehouse. Jack's mind raced. It was always like this. The killer stayed in control, pulling the strings. But tonight, something felt different. Riley's voice crackled suddenly in his earpiece. "Jack, we're outside. Zwart's got eyes. Take the shot if you can." The whisperer froze, realizing too late that Jack hadn't come alone. His head turned ever so slightly toward the rafters, just enough. Jack fired, one bullet, clean to the shoulder. The whisperer staggered, collapsing against the concrete, blood spreading across his dark jacket. SWAT poured in, disarming traps hidden near the hostage. Riley rushed forward, freeing the terrified man. Jack approached the fallen figure, guns still trained. He yanked the hood back. The face staring up at him wasn't a stranger. It was Daniel Kane, a former NYPD detective. Jack's old partner. Jack's breath caught, memories surged, cases they'd worked together, nights spent chasing ghosts. Kane had disappeared years ago, rumored to have taken a desk job upstate. But now, Kane smiled through bloodied teeth. "You forgot me, Jack. You left me to rot in this system. You climbed the ladder while I sank. And all the while, I realize justice doesn't exist, only the game." Jack's voice shook with fury. "You killed innocent people." "You killed Claire. She wasn't innocent," Kane hissed. "She was your weakness. And I needed you strong enough to play." O'Reilly stepped beside Jack, gun drawn. "We should end this now." Jack stared down at his old partner. Every muscle screamed to pull the trigger to finish it, but he lowered his weapon. "No. He faces justice, the real kind." Kane laughed bitterly as SWAT cuffed him. "You think this ends with me? You'll never escape the game, Jack." 3 weeks later, Brooklyn was quieter. The press had their headlines. The city had its monster behind bars, but Jack Morgan didn't have peace. He stood alone at Claire's grave, a simple bouquet of lilies resting against the stone. "I caught him, Claire," he whispered, "but it doesn't bring you back." The autumn wind carried the sounds of the city beyond the cemetery gates. Sirens, horns, life moving on. Jack adjusted his coat and turned away. The whisperer's words still haunted him. "You'll never escape the game." And deep down, Jack knew the ghost of Daniel Kane wasn't entirely wrong. Because in New York, death always left echoes. Please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.